For centuries, history painted her as the perfect monarch, pure, untouchable, and eternally devoted to her throne. She was the Virgin Queen, the ruler who needed no king. But behind the veil of power and pride, a secret rotted in silence, a truth so disturbing that the royal archives buried it under 4 centuries of lies. Whispers from the palace servants spoke of sleepless nights, hidden physicians, and locked chambers forbidden even to her closest maids. Her beauty never faded, her mind never weakened, and that unnatural perfection frightened those who served her. Letters discovered centuries later hinted at an unholy pact, a forbidden experiment meant to preserve her reign at any cost. What did she trade for her crown? Why did every proposal end in tragedy? And why did her most loyal doctor vanish without a trace after her final illness? Now, historians uncover the fragments of a story too grotesque for the textbooks, a story of obsession, alchemy, and a queen whose greatest secret was written in her own flesh. Because sometimes, the price of power isn't betrayal, it's transformation. In the golden glow of the 16th century, England's throne was ruled by a woman the world called the Virgin Queen. To her people, she was the living embodiment of purity and power, a monarch whose intellect rivaled kings and whose beauty seemed untouched by time. Poets adored her, nobles feared her, and foreign suitors, princes, dukes, and emperors, offered their crowns for her hand. Yet she refused them all. What kind of queen rejects every proposal in an age when marriage meant security, heirs, and legacy? Historians long insisted it was politics, that she loved her freedom more than any man. But behind her glittering court another truth took shape, a truth too dreadful to whisper aloud. Those who served her closely noticed things the history books never recorded. She slept little, ate sparingly, and often vanished from public view for days. At times her complexion would pale so suddenly that even her most loyal ladies-in-waiting would cross themselves in fear. And when she returned to court, she appeared radiant again, her energy renewed, her eyes sharper, her voice steady as ever. Whispers began to spread among the servants. She is protected by something not of this world. Others claimed she practiced the secret sciences, alchemy, medicine, or perhaps something older, darker, passed down through forbidden texts, yet, in her public image, she was untouchable. Painters immortalized her face in luminous portraits, the white skin, the crimson lips, the eyes that never seemed to age. The church called her divinely chosen, the people called her blessed, and she herself claimed she was married to England. But one man, her personal physician, saw what others could not. He recorded faint tremors in her hands, strange markings beneath her collar, and an illness that defied explanation. His journals, later confiscated by the crown, hinted that the queen suffered from something beyond human understanding. Centuries later, when fragments of those lost writings were uncovered, scholars found a single line that chilled them to the bone. She sought not purity, but preservation, and in doing so, became something neither mortal nor divine. What did those words mean? Was it a metaphor for power, or a confession of something far more sinister? The Virgin Queen's reign was filled with triumphs, yet shadowed by secrets. No lover, no heir, no family to continue her bloodline, just one woman, radiant, untouchable, eternal, and a silence that echoed long after her death. For 400 years, history celebrated her as the queen who defied marriage for the sake of her throne. But the truth buried beneath her legend suggests something else entirely. She didn't reject love. She was hiding from it. Behind the grand facade of the Tudor court, where music, laughter, and diplomacy painted the illusion of perfection, the queen's private life was shrouded in secrecy. Few dared to question what happened behind the locked doors of her royal chambers, where only a handful of attendants were ever permitted to enter. Those who did were sworn to silence. Yet fragments of their testimonies, uncovered centuries later, reveal a far darker story than the world was meant to know. The queen's rooms were unlike any other in the palace. While most monarchs surrounded themselves with symbols of faith, crosses, psalms, holy relics, her walls were lined with books, old forbidden texts on medicine, anatomy, astrology, and the occult. Her fascination with knowledge was known to all, but what few realized was how deep that curiosity truly ran. She sought more than wisdom. She sought mastery over the frailty of flesh. Late at night, the palace guards often reported a faint golden glow seeping from beneath her chamber doors, the light of candles burning through sleepless hours. Inside, she worked with her physician on mysterious tonics and powders. Records suggest she experimented with mercury, gold elixirs, and rare herbs imported from distant lands. To her court, these were harmless remedies to preserve her beauty. To those who knew better, they were attempts to defy nature itself. One servant's letter, found in a private archive, described hearing strange murmurs, not prayers, but chants, as if the queen was reciting words in a forgotten tongue. When the door opened, the smell of burning metal filled the hall. The next morning, her complexion appeared flawless, her energy unnaturally bright. Over time, these patterns became impossible to ignore. The queen would vanish from the public eye for days, claiming illness or retreat. During these absences, her chambers remained sealed, guarded by trusted men who answered only to her. When she reappeared, her presence seemed renewed, as though she had shed exhaustion and emerged reborn. The royal physician, who served her with unwavering loyalty, began keeping secret notes, sketches of her pulse, changes in her eyes, the peculiar stillness of her skin. He wrote that her heart rate was unnaturally steady, and that her recovery from fatigue defied all natural law. But soon, even he began to fear what he was witnessing. In one chilling entry he wrote, "The queen has begun to command her own decay. She bends time, or time bends for her." When his writings were discovered after his disappearance, the crown immediately sealed them. The official record claimed he died of fever. Unofficially, no one ever found his body. From that day forward, no one outside the royal circle was permitted near the queen without her permission. Even her closest advisors noticed the change. Her silence deepened, her gaze grew colder, and her presence seemed almost spectral. Whatever she was seeking in those secret chambers, it was no longer healing. It was control. As whispers about the queen's mysterious practices grew, one story began to take hold among her closest servants, a legend that she had entered into a pact. Whether born from superstition or truth, the idea spread quietly through the corridors of the palace. That her unmatched wisdom and ageless beauty were not gifts of God, but payment for something promised long ago. It was said that early in her reign, the queen met with a secret order of scholars, men who practiced the forbidden sciences of alchemy and prophecy. They called themselves the Circle of the Eclipse, a society devoted to uncovering the mysteries of immortality. To the outside world, they were nothing but her astrologers and royal advisors. Yet their private correspondence hinted at rituals meant to bind life to legacy. One fragment, preserved in the archives, bore the queen's own signature beside a chilling phrase written in Latin, "In puritate aeternitas." In purity, eternity. Historians later debated its meaning. Some believed it was symbolic, representing her vow to remain unwed. Others feared it was literal, a covenant ensuring that her reign would never end, so long as her body remained untouched. From that moment onward, every aspect of her life seemed shaped by this vow. The marriage proposals from powerful rulers, Spain, France, Austria, were politely rejected, though each could have secured her throne. Her ministers pleaded, her court gossiped, yet she remained unmoved. "I am already bound," she once told a confidant, her voice cold and distant. None dared to ask what she meant, but the pact, if it existed, carried a price. The royal physician's last surviving notes revealed disturbing symptoms. Her blood would thin to near translucence. Her temperature dropped to unnatural lows, and yet she lived on, untouched by age. When her closest companion once confronted her about her health, the queen reportedly smiled and whispered, "I am as time made me." Throughout her reign, her enemies accused her of witchcraft, but no proof ever emerged. Still, the coincidences were impossible to ignore. Rivals fell ill without cause, storms ruined armadas that threatened her, and fires consumed those who dared to question her purity. To her people, these were divine miracles. To those who knew her secrets, they were signs of a power no mortal should wield. The Circle of the Eclipse vanished from history after her middle years, executed, exiled, or disappeared without record. Only the queen remained, ruling with steady hand and unbroken will, untouched by the passage of time. Centuries later, a scholar discovered one final parchment sealed beneath the royal crypt, unsigned, but written in her unmistakable hand. They gave me eternity in exchange for an heir. I chose the crown over love, and the silence has never ended. The world remembered her as the Virgin Queen, but perhaps she was something far more haunting, the cursed one. Centuries after the Queen's death, the legend of her virgin purity remained one of England's proudest symbols. Her image was carved into monuments, her portraits worshipped as emblems of divine wisdom. Yet beneath that flawless legacy, a darker truth slept, sealed behind the walls of her royal estate and guarded by the silence of history itself. In 1892, during the restoration of an old palace wing, workers stumbled upon a hidden chamber sealed with iron locks and bearing the Queen's crest. The air inside was stale and cold, untouched for centuries. Within, they found a table lined with vials, strange manuscripts, and diagrams of the human body drawn in meticulous detail. There were also objects that seemed far beyond Tudor science: glass tubes, preserved herbs, and metallic instruments unknown to any historian. At first, the discovery was celebrated as evidence of the Queen's scientific curiosity. But when scholars began to translate her private notes, their fascination turned to dread. She wrote not about learning, but transformation. Her entries spoke of the body as a vessel, the spirit as energy, and the soul as something that could be refined and preserved through purity. Her obsession with remaining untouched was not moral, it was experimental. She believed physical intimacy could dilute the essence she sought to protect. Marriage, love, and childbirth would break the bond she had formed with her eternal purity. What she truly guarded was not her chastity, but her survival. One scholar from Cambridge later confessed that several of the manuscripts were so disturbing that they were resealed by royal order. He claimed the papers contained formulas for elixirs and methods for slowing decay, centuries before modern science would even dream of such ideas. Even more unsettling was the mention of her physician, the man who vanished. Her diary described him not as a servant, but as a partner in discovery. The last entry about him read simply, "He saw what he should not. I had to preserve the secret." No further trace of the man exists in any official record. The royal family, fearful of scandal, ordered all artifacts quietly removed. Many were never seen again. Others were rumored to be locked away in the private collection of Windsor, labeled forbidden relics of the crown. Still, rumors persisted. Some claimed that when the chamber was first opened, one of the workers fell ill after handling the vials. Another swore he saw something impossible, a reflection in a cracked mirror that was not his own. As historians debated the meaning of her writings, one theory emerged that would change everything. The Queen may have succeeded, not in immortality of flesh, but of influence. Her aura, her legend, her power, they never faded. Even now, her face stares from portraits as vivid as the day she died. Perhaps the Queen's greatest creation was not her empire, but her legacy itself, a legacy that refused to decay. 4 centuries after her death, the Virgin Queen remains one of history's greatest enigmas, a ruler whose power defied her era and whose secrets defied time itself. But with every passing generation, fragments of her truth began to surface, and the portrait of perfection that England once celebrated slowly began to fracture. In the early 21st century, researchers examining newly declassified royal documents stumbled upon a collection of sealed letters, marked only with the initials ER and dated from the final years of her reign. Among them was a message addressed to no one, written in trembling ink. "I am surrounded by mirrors and yet see no reflection that is mine. My soul feels borrowed, my years unearned. The crown is eternal, but I am not." The letter's tone was unlike the confident queen history remembered. It revealed a woman haunted by her own decisions, trapped between the legacy she built and the curse that sustained it. Some historians dismissed it as forgery. Others believed it was the Queen's final confession, a plea to be remembered not as divine, but as human. Further study of her burial site deepened the mystery. When her coffin was last examined, her body was found unnaturally well preserved for its age. Scholars attributed it to royal embalming methods, yet none were recorded in her death documents. The lead coffin was unusually thick, sealed in a manner meant to last forever, as if she feared what might happen if it were ever opened again. In 2012, a team of archivists discovered faint notes written by one of her successors, describing the Queen's strange, remains and ordering that they never be disturbed again. It seemed the monarchy itself had chosen to guard her mystery, not expose it, but why? Perhaps because the truth would challenge everything England believed about its golden age. The queen who brought peace, power, and enlightenment to her nation might also have been the architect of something forbidden, a living experiment in purity, preservation, and control. She had become a symbol of virtue, but at a cost so unimaginable that even her descendants chose silence. Some modern scholars now suggest that her legend, the eternal Virgin Queen, was itself her greatest alchemical achievement. Not the transformation of metal into gold, but of mortality into myth. She had crafted an image so powerful, so untouchable, that it transcended her death. And yet, deep within her final writings, a single haunting phrase lingers, one that echoes through centuries of mystery. What I became was never meant to live, only to endure. The Virgin Queen never married because she could not. Not out of pride, nor politics, nor purity, but because her soul was bound to something that demanded her solitude. Her secret was never about love or loyalty. It was about survival, and even now, 400 years later, her silence still reigns.